Welcome everyone. Today's session is on TC 314 Ageing Societies, and we're particularly going to focus on guidelines for care inclusive organisations. It's my privilege to welcome Professor Alison Williams, who's the convener of the Care Inclusive Organisations Working Group. Alison, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Carers play a significant part in supporting people worldwide. What specific areas does your work cover?
Sure. So informal caring or family caregiving, as it's often called, is really referring to unpaid work that primarily women do in providing care, primarily for family members and oftentimes elderly family members, whether they be grandparents or spouses, aunts, uncles, or sometimes friends or even neighbors. And in Canada, for example, 1 of every 4 Canadians is a carer providing this informal unpaid care. And we know that they make up 35% of the workforce as well. So they're not only providing this informal unpaid care, but they're also often working full time. And that's what we call the carer employee, sometimes known as the carer worker. And the carer worker is oftentimes strained both by time and by geography in being, or having to be rather, in multiple places at multiple times and sometimes at the same time. So oftentimes they're very strained and they experience caregiver burden, and that sometimes affects their mental, their physical, their financial, and certainly their social life. This work is really focused on people who are carer employees right across the world, not just in Canada, but across the world. It's a tool to minimize the space and time tensions that carer employees experience in balancing the many roles that they play.
Thanks, Alison. Your work just recently moved to a draft international standard. So congratulations, your working group has achieved a lot in a short period of time. What are the key issues that this work is hoping to achieve?
Primarily, the working group is trying to build a tool which will provide an opportunity for employers and organizations of various sorts to put in place a carer culture and a carer-friendly workplace. And that really involves the employer determining what the demographic profile of their workforce is, specific to the representation of carer employees, B, determining the landscape around current accommodations that are available for carer employees, C, determining the gaps or the areas which need to be filled with respect to accommodation and culture change, and 4, implementing the program, the carer-friendly program, and evaluating it for ongoing development and monitoring. And so ultimately, the standard itself will provide a ready tool for organizations and employers specifically to move their workplace from a culture which doesn't recognize carer employees to a culture which is carer friendly and provides a range of accommodations for carer employees in order to keep them in the workplace and consequently minimize work-life strain, carer burden, and the negative mental and physical health outcomes that may ensue if these accommodations aren't put in place.
This is extremely important work, Professor Williams, particularly if no time like this time through the COVID pandemic. We're very interested in what timeframes you're thinking about progressing this work.
Sure, that's a great question. So generally speaking, these international standards take between 1.5 to 2 years to realize. And we're currently about 1.5 years in. So We should have the final approval and publication of our standard in the spring of 2021, which is exciting because that means that it will be available to member countries and member bodies in the spring of 2021. The international standard is based on the Canadian Carer Inclusive and Accommodating Organization Standard, which was a partnership between McMaster University, where I work, and the Canadian Standards Association, the CSA. And that really allowed us to have a template in moving the international standard forward, which really provided a bit of a head start, if you will, in the creation of the international standard. So we may in fact be finished a little earlier than April 2021 with respect to final approval and publication.
Thank you. This is really important work. So how do people keep in touch with your work and perhaps contribute to it?
Yeah, another great question. Certainly, if individuals are interested in contributing to the standard, this is a very good time in that it is currently in the draft international standard stage where any ISO member body, that is International Standards Organization member body, can contribute through their member bodies, whether it be, for example, the British Standards Institute or the Standards Council of Canada. The International Standards Organization is made up of 89 of these member bodies. And so individuals who are interested in contributing or informing the standard would best contact their member body, speak to the individual who is associated with our technical committee, which is TC 314. And we are one of 3 working groups, the other 2 of which are aging-friendly workplaces and dementia-friendly communities. So again, it's Technical Committee 314, and certainly any time between November of 2020 and February of 2021 is when individuals and again member bodies can contribute to informing the standard. And if they're interested in keeping in touch with the progress of the standard, it is highlighted on my own website at McMaster University. Simply Google Alison Williams, McMaster University, Gender, Health and Work, and the website should come up. And it's very easy to find the standard project under Stream B. You're welcome to contact me as needed.
Thank you, Alison. The names of the key contacts are on the board at the moment. And I'll also remind our viewers that ISO TC 314 has its own website as well, and you can contact any of the working groups. I'd like to thank you, Professor Williams, for your time today and outlining the important role that carers can play and how standardisation might help organisations respond better to providing support for carers in the workplace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Anne. Have a great night.